Hey, this is Mark from Casting Crowns, and you're listening to Dispatch Radio.
Folks, I have a great guest now. We're going to talk to American Bible Society's Children's Ministry Senior Advisor, Margi McCombs. How are you, ma'am?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Thanks for fitting this into your schedule. I wanted to talk about a great press release that you guys did ahead of the Son of God film. Now, we weren't able to get you around that time frame, but obviously we're in the thralls of a whole bunch of faith-based films like God's Not Dead opens tomorrow, Noah's next week, next month is Heaven is for Real, and this press release really dealt with some tips and pointers that folks need to have about talking about Jesus with their children, talking about the Bible with their children. And I think you did a really good job, and I want to get right to the first point that you make is, prepare them ahead of time. Talk to them. Don't wait until, you're in the car going to this for them to understand that some of these films portray kind of a harsh reality, right?
It is, and there's a lot to understand. I think obviously the historical context is really important. And it's the times that Jesus lived in is so different from our time currently. And so for children, it's just hard to understand that because all they know is their experience with 21st century. So it's important to prepare them ahead of time for that.
What do you tell parents, or how's the best way, do you think, to familiarize themselves with, let's say, something like the beating and the crucifixion? Because that's obviously there's been movies like Passion of the Christ that went much, much further than Son of God, but it's still a very intense sequence.
It's an intense sequence, and parents, first of all, need to know their children. We know that some temperaments are more tender-hearted than others, and so some children at any age are going to be able to handle scenes that are difficult like that differently, and so better than others. And so, first of all, parents really need to know their kids and what their capacity is for that. But secondly, I think understanding from the parent's perspective, and really from a biblical perspective, who Jesus is portrayed as, and also why he came and what his purpose was. And his purpose was to come basically to save mankind, and the way to save mankind was he had to die. And that is a harsh reality. But children, being concrete thinkers, can understand that. He's going to take emotional cues from the adults that are telling the story. If the story is told logically, it's told carefully, it's told in a loving way, then I think that children can understand. We've certainly told this to children throughout the ages, and children can understand it.
The press release was titled 5 Tips for Talking to Kids About the Story of Jesus, and the American Bible Society put this out. We're talking to the senior advisor of their children's ministry, and they do some great tips and great pointers, and we're going to link to this so you folks can read it yourselves of, how do you discuss certain topics. And I want to get to the virgin birth, because it's one of those things where most adults can't get their head around the virgin birth. So we have to at least come up with a strategy of how we're going to talk to it with the kids. What do you tell parents of, let's say, first little kids and then maybe teenagers?
Well, again, it's developmentally appropriate to know who your children are and what they can handle and what they're thinking about. But mostly with young children, I realize that in cognitive development, children move from concrete to abstract thinking. So young children are very concrete, and they believe whatever you tell them. They don't really question it. And so it's not hard for them to understand that if we say God placed a baby in Mary and it was Jesus, they're not going to have a hard time understanding that. They don't really need to know the whole sexual content or sexual context for that. An older child, of course, who understands how babies are made, can also understand that God is the creator and can do anything he wants. And so he placed a baby in Mary by his power, and Jesus was not an ordinary person. He was both God and human. So we can explain it by the power of God.
And I think Son of God has some of this in it, but we're definitely going to see it more. I was able to screen Heaven is for Real, and we get some images and some concepts of angels, and I think the other part of that is with an angel comes the flip side of that coin. Is that means there's an enemy, there's the Satan and demons and those kinds of things. So, how should parents? I mean, what do you say for the younger audience? What do you tell your child? And advice you give them when you're watching it. Maybe you don't even know what to expect when you go into the auditorium, and maybe that's part of the problem. We can get to that in a minute. But what do you say when you advise the child?
Well, what I would advise parents is to understand that supernatural evil can be extremely frightening, just as God's love can be extremely comforting. And so what I tell parents is to be very careful when they're talking about demons and Satan and evil spirits and all of that, because it's hard for children to understand that. But if they're going to hear about that or they're going to encounter that, the best thing that parents can do is counteract that with an assurance that they are safe, that God's word comforts them with the truth, that nothing can separate them from the love of God, and that they are okay. They just need to know that they're safe.
Absolutely. That is so important. And folks, I kind of got ahead of myself because I realized now, as soon as I was saying it, I realized that it's one of the points on her list. And Margie has it as number 4. It was about preview the content for yourself. And folks, we talk about this all the time. We do this. We have, a lot of exposés on the website. We've talked about it on the radio show. Actually, I just did a very nice discussion about the Noah film and about, what you need to... if you're going to go view it, you need to educate yourself. How are you going to talk to people about what's in Scripture if you don't know what was in the movie that people either loved or didn't like? And educating yourself is not something Christians should be afraid of. Now, as parents, it goes a step further, right? Because not every child needs to see Son of God. Definitely not every child. Well, some of them would be bored to tears, I think, with God's Not Dead. And definitely not seeing something like Noah without screening it first. So, how do we get parents to pull their weight? I'll say what maybe you can't say, Margie. Parents got to pull their weight.
They do. Most parents. Well, I want to say that most parents want the best for their kids. That's true.
Absolutely.
Not all parents take the time to be as involved as others. That's also true. But I think challenging parents with the responsibility of, hey, this is something you need to know about and be prepared to explain to your child. It's not like going to see a Disney animation film, which is just wonderful, but it's not like that. And especially if children have already been introduced to Jesus and who he is, and if this is a Christian family, then Jesus is a part of the family. I mean, he's so they already have a familiar relationship with him. So to see him being treated meanly is really hard. It's very emotional. So they have to prepare their children. And then even if they think that their children can handle it, they have to prepare them by saying, there's some things in here that in this movie that might be really hard for you to see. But remember, if it's too hard for you to see, I'm right there, and you can just put your face in my shoulder or just close your eyes, hold my hand, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
Yeah, I agree.
So
that's what we used to do with our daughter.
It gives them some coping mechanisms. Just say, sometimes, I as an adult, sometimes I get pretty scared in movies. I close my eyes. So it's not unusual or out of the question to prepare your kids that way.
Well, and I have to say, as an adult man, that there's certain things that I don't want to see. I'm predisposed to sin, like every other human being. There's certain things that I'm trying to shield myself from, and I will look away. And it's right. It is part of being a responsible steward of your Christianity, and that rolls into your parenting skills, folks. And you need to work with your children for them to number one, have understanding, but also to understand responsibility. If they are having trouble handling something, then you need to do your part to help shield them from emotional stress of things that they don't need to handle at whatever their age may be, whatever's age appropriate. Absolutely.
And those are good skills to teach your children anyway, regardless of what the context is.
You link to a couple of things that I'm going to include at the bottom of our post on the interview when we get this up and running, and want to talk about, if you could, just some of the different resources that people can find and find out more about American Bible Society.
Well, thanks for asking that. On the American Bible Society, that's AmericanBible.org website, there are a lot of resources. Specifically for children, there is right now a 30-day journey through the book of Acts with 30 daily devotionals for children, which is really cool because it also includes family discussion guide. There's a track for adults, for youth, and for children. And a whole family can go through the book of Acts. We're currently working on similar study in the book of Luke, although that hasn't been published yet. It'll be coming out this fall. Really excited about that. But there's also some, for a Bible, you can get some children's Bibles. The Read and Learn Bible is published by the American Bible Society. But there's other resources, so I think it's just a good place to find resources and brush up on their knowledge of the Bible by going to the website.
American Bible Society, folks, has done a great job of trying to do their part of getting the Bible in the hands and education in the hands of every human being. That is our call. That is our mission that we were left with, and they're doing their part. And it is not any kick to your self-esteem or anything about your lack of skills when you have to reach out to websites like this one to know how to get help, to know how to get educated, to learn different skill sets. This is what they do. And AmericanBible.org is a fantastic website. We have been partnering with many other groups that are like this, and this is one of the ones that we're going to spend some more time, and I hope that we can have Margie or someone else from her group back on again when they get that Luke study back up and running, and maybe there'll be other things that we need to talk about as well. But it has been a great opportunity talking to Margi McCombs. She is the Children's Ministry Senior Advisor, and Margie, I really do appreciate it. I really do appreciate everything that you guys do, because sometimes as parents, I know it was for me, I didn't know what to do sometimes. I think that was the hardest challenge, right, is you didn't know what to do.
That's right. It's hard to know. You care so much about your children's spiritual formation, and it's hard to know what to do. But there are resources available, and we'll try to get some more up on our website also to continue to grow that part of our ministry.
Well, thank you again for your time, Margie, and we will definitely be in contact, and I appreciate all your time. God bless.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.